What is going on YouTube? Alright, Dave coming at you with another video. And I've had some friends in the past recommend, hey Dave, why don't you do like a top 5 or a top 10 pieces of your collection? And I never really gave a lot of thought to doing so, mainly for the reason that everything in my collection I've already showed you guys in a previous video. And the last thing I wanted to do is have this channel become repetitive. So, I gave it a little thought and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should do a little, top video and elaborate on some of my pieces a little more, give you guys a little more info. So that's what I'm going to do today. So today's going to be my top 5 baseball autographs. Stay tuned. Number 5 is my Mickey Mantle signed baseball. This ball in particular is authenticated by PSA, and it is signed on a Bobby Brown ball. That's one interesting piece of information too. Most of you collectors know this already, but Mickey Mantle autographs there's a lot of forgeries out there. You have to be very, very careful when you're buying Mantle signed items. Now, for example, on a ball, study up on, the baseball commissioners and study up when certain baseballs went into circulation, went out of circulation. Because if you get a Mickey Mantle autograph on a baseball that wasn't made till after he had passed away, that's pretty much a dead giveaway that that's not real. Another big thing is you notice the little half moons underneath the 2 M's. If you see shakiness on these little half moons, that's a big telltale sign that it's a forgery, because most forgers really can't get those right. But if it's nice and smooth, you got a good bet. Like I said, I mentioned this was authenticated by PSA. You definitely want to make sure when you're buying autographs you get them authenticated by one of the big companies out there, because like I said, there are an awful lot of Mickey Mantle forgeries out there, and you definitely don't want to get jammed up with one of those. But in any event, this is my Mickey Mantle signed baseball, and this is number 5 on my list. Number 4, we have a Mickey Cochrane signed check. Now, Mickey Cochrane is a Hall of Famer, was inducted in 1947, played for the Philadelphia Athletics and also the Detroit Tigers. And the father of Mickey Mantle, this was his favorite player. And this is where Mickey Mantle got his name from Mickey Cochrane, whose real name was Gordon, actually. But this check is from September 16th, 1952, and is made out to the Fellowship Lodge and Foundation for $10, and is signed Gordon S. Cochrane. So that is definitely a cool piece. This was authenticated by JSA, and this was always one of my favorites. He passed away in 1962, and I always loved getting autographs from these vintage stores. You got to remember something. Before the 1980s, autographs weren't big business. Weren't business at all, for the most part. So if you can find signatures from players that passed away before the 1980s, you got a rare piece of memorabilia on your hands, because that's way before anybody was asking them to go to card shows or sign and make money off it and stuff like that, because it was not a business at that point. So like I said, this was signed in 1952, and I love it. So this is number 4 on my list. Number 3, this is my letter that is signed by Connie Mack. Now, one of the cool things about Connie Mack is, he was a ball player back in the 1800s, and he eventually ended up purchasing the Philadelphia Athletics and appointed himself manager, and he stayed manager of that team for over 50 years. The longest streak ever, and I seriously doubt that's going to be broken anytime soon. But this letter is cool. This letter is authenticated by PSA. and it's from June 3rd, 1937. And 1937 is the year that Connie Mack was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And the stationery is Hotel Kingsway, St. Louis. And you can see that the print is fairly faded, but you could still read the entire thing. And he's talking about scouting, and he's also talking about how his friend's son is the chief umpire. And it's pretty cool. And you see, "Sincerely yours, Connie Mack," with a nice bold signature. Looks like nice fountain pen signature. The letter's not in the best shape. You can see the folds and creases, but to me, it just adds character, for the most part. But this is, like I always wanted a piece that was Connie Mack. He's definitely, if you're into baseball history, you know this guy right off the bat. So, this is number 3 on my autograph list. Number 2, my 1961 New York Yankees signed baseball. The 61 Yankees, for me, was always a phenomenal team. Obviously, I was not around to see them play. But just being into Yankee history and knowing that that's a season that Roger Maris hit 61 home runs. Obviously, they had won the World Series that year. And, this, if you're a Yankee fan, this is a kind of team-signed ball that you want to get. Now, on the label side, the reverse side of the sweet spot, we see Roger Maris autograph. And just thinking about the fact that Roger Maris signed this ball during the 1961 season is amazing to me. It blows my mind, because you think about it, everybody knows the story by now of everything he went through, all the harassment from the press and the fans. Of course, everybody wanted Mantle to break the record, not Maris. And I try to put it in my mind, what was he thinking when he signed this? I mean, did he hit a home run that day? Was the press beating him up? What could have been going on through his mind? But it is really cool to have his autograph on this ball. And there are so many greats. I'll try to move this around a little bit for you. But you see we got Johnny Blanchard up here, Elston Howard. Elston Howard, that's a rare signature too. Most people know that Elston Howard was the first black player to play for the New York Yankees. He came up in '55, and he was a great catcher. He never made it up to Hall of Fame status, but he was a great player, and he was a coach with the Yankees during the Billy Martin era as well. So that is a nice signature to have on there. We also have Bob Serve, who actually lived with Roger Maris during the 1961 season. You can see a lot of these signatures are fairly faded, but we have a Tony Kubek up there, and we have a Cleet Boyer, which is pretty cool, Like I said, just having all these signatures is great. Now, this ball has 24 signatures on it. 23 of the 24 signatures are authentic. Only one is a clubhouse signature, and that is the Mickey Mantle you see right here. Now, let me explain to you a little bit about clubhouse signatures for those of you who might not know. For the longest time, it kind of started in the Babe Ruth era. And pretty much went up into the late 70s, where a lot of big-name players, when they'd be passing one of these a bunch of these baseballs around the clubhouse, especially the big-name players, a lot of them didn't really have time to sit there and just sign baseballs. like I said, Babe Ruth would have a clubhouse signer. Even Lou Gehrig would sometimes. Joe DiMaggio. Like Casey Stengel. Mickey Mantle did this too, and even up into the 70s, Thurman Munson would do it as well. And they basically, if they were too busy, they'd have one of the clubhouse kids sign their name, and you could see obviously that is not Mickey Mantle's autograph. So that takes away from the ball a little bit, but for me, not too much. Roger Maris that's the real signature you'd want to see on the ball like this. But the fact that 23 out of 24 of these autographs are genuine, and we can see above Mantle we have Yogi Berra, which is definitely cool. And let me flip it around to this panel. And down here it says Ed Ford, so that's Whitey Ford. So it's pretty cool. It's not that often that you see the signature of Ed Ford as opposed to Whitey, which is what he signs now. But I love this ball. This is definitely great. Like I said, got a letter from PSA on this one. And this is number 2 on my list. And number 1, was there ever really any doubt? My Babe Ruth signed baseball. Now I gotta say, this is probably one of the roughest Babe Ruth signed baseballs. And honestly, that's the only reason I could afford it. But it is signed by Babe Ruth, and I have a letter from JSA on this ball saying that it was signed between 1931 and 1934. Which I think is great because it was signed while he was with the Yankees. It wasn't signed after he had retired. And also, the fact that it could have been signed in 1932, the season of the famous, or infamous for that matter, cold shot. But you can also see that up top, it was looks like it was inscribed to somebody, but you really can't make out who it is. It almost looks like there's an M, and that's really all you get. Now, right here, you can see from, and then you see on the bottom, Babe Ruth. And you can see where the, the B starts. And like I said, this ball has definitely seen better days, but this ball was held by Babe Ruth. How amazing is that? And I always loved the red and blue stitching. And you could see this is an old reach ball. Yeah, so you could still see the label a little bit on there. But this, I remember when I got this ball. Because honestly, I never thought I'd own a Babe Ruth ball. I thought maybe on a lucky day when all the stars align and, there's magic in the air, maybe I'd get a cut, a crappy little cut signature. But I never in my life really thought I would ever own a Babe Ruth signed ball before. And when I saw this and saw it with the letter of authenticity from JSA and the right price, I had to get it. And I remember myself and my wife looking at it and saying, like, oh my God. She was almost shaking looking at it, saying, Babe Ruth held that ball. I can't believe it. It's really an amazing experience. And I got to say, if anybody out there who's a collector, if within your means you can get a Babe Ruth autographed baseball at some point in your lifetime, do it. Because I tell you what, it's just so cool to think. I mean, Babe Ruth is the greatest sports icon of all time. You could talk about Muhammad Ali, you could talk about Michael Jordan, you could talk about Wayne Gretzky, you can talk about Jim Brown and names like that. Babe Ruth was and is and always will be the number one sports icon of all time. They'll be talking about Babe Ruth forever. And this ball he held in his hand and autographed. It said it was signed with a steel tip fountain pen. And like I said, it is the gem of my collection. Of course, had to be the number one spot in my top 5 autograph video. So this is the best place to end it. So YouTube, I really hope you enjoyed this top 5 video. And I'm thinking about next week doing my top 5 baseball cards. So I will see you guys then.